Hey, Kyler here. Our aim for this show is to leverage every opportunity that life throws at us. I hope you find value in today's show.
The year is 1970, and there is a man with a mission, a heart for the Lord, and a big dream working out of his garage. Took out a $600 loan for the idea that he could sell picture frames, custom picture frames, to local stores. Now, we hear that and think there is absolutely no way that's going to work and blow up into a multi-billion-dollar business. But you never know what could happen with a little bit of grit, rolling up your sleeves, and a deep dedication and conviction to something that's going to work. And especially living open-handed, that the Lord's got it ultimately. Today's episode, we are talking about on the Leverage Life show, a man by the name of David Green, who built the empire known as one of my mom's favorite stores, Hobby Lobby. It is a place I'm sure that we've all been in multiple times that somehow has just exploded, multi-billion-dollar empire, and one of the most generous places alive. Not just the business, but the family behind it. And that's the whole concept behind this series that we are in on the Leverage Life show. Kyle and I are going deep on the families who did it well. And what we've noticed about the families who do it well is that, yes, there's a lot of money involved, but more so, it's how they went about it. It's the family's convictions, their core values, and what mattered most to them. And that's what has led to the most effective transfer of their business and the stewarding of their wealth. Today, Hobby Lobby has over 900 locations. And then more than once, David Green has continued to argue that he is not the one who owns the business. And yes, this sounds distinctly faith-based and Christian, but he says, because he's distinctly faith-based, that God is the one who owns the business. And we're going to break that down a little bit today and how that has built the Hobby Lobby empire and what that means in today's episode on the Leverage Life show.
Cord, the Stewarding Legacies framework, it starts with the question of ownership. Who does this actually belong to? And there's kind of a couple of different ways you can look at like the ownership aspect. Obviously, we've been talking about multi-generational like business owners and like who owns this with trust structures and like yada 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 yada. But there's kind of like this opposite side of the coin of like if you look at it from a different lens, it's like, well, who does this actually belong to?
Mm-hmm.
And so for David Green and his family, they have explicitly answered that, like you just said, and they don't truly own the business. They're just stewards of it because the business actually belongs to God and the family just manages it. And there's many families that kind of come along with that language. And, whether you are religious or not, it's, I think it's worth looking at how people have done things. And I mean, Cord and I were both believers. And so, we like to really steady business owners like this because not only have they been super successful, but they've done it with a mission and they're built by values and their faith and just the things that they want to make sure that their family is known by. And that's what's, I think, deeply impactful for me is to see business owners and people that have very charitable minded type of like, philanthropic activities and making sure that they're doing things that just are aligning with their vision. They are being told nonstop by other people that, hey, this probably doesn't make financial business sense. And they have such a strong conviction with these topics that they're not going to change it. And it just is what it is. And we talked last week about the Cathy family, and this is kind of similar as well. For Hobby Lobby and Chick-fil-A, from the very beginning, they've never been open on Sundays. And it, in a lot of ways, probably doesn't make financial sense because if you went and talked with probably people that work with or work at Michael's or Joann's, like some other competitors to Hobby Lobby, you'd probably have to find some locations, but there's probably similar locations that are probably close together. And you'd probably ask the people that worked at those other locations, "Hey, how are Sundays looking for you?" And they're like, "Wow, we're probably slammed."
Mhm.
Because guess what? Hobby Lobby's not open on Sundays. And so you can go to somewhere else to get the similar things, but they're just not open on Sundays. But that's a conviction that they had. They wanted to honor the Sabbath and everything they do, and so they are closed on Sundays just like
Mhm.
Chick-fil-A and what the Cathy family did. So I think it's really interesting to see, just the dynamics, kind of a financial perspective too, that of just saying, "Hey, we're gonna draw a line in the sand, and we're gonna make a decision that
Mhm.
probably doesn't make any sense financially." And a lot of people would say they probably just wouldn't work out, but here we are, we're evaluating 2 massive, massive companies that have worked out, and so
Yeah.
it's like, okay, what are you wanna argue against it? No, like, you can't say they against it, but I love that the Green family, they've drawn this line in the sand, they're honoring their Sabbath, they want to make sure that their faith is the primary thing and that they are just stewarding this business in the best way possible. When you look at Hobby Lobby, and of course, I mentioned this, I think, the other day to you, well, not even Hobby Lobby, but any business, when you get massive, you're gonna have some controversies, and
Mhm.
we're not gonna dive into, like, all the controversies today, but with Hobby Lobby, of course, it's been in the news for different things, obviously, and I think probably one of the biggest ones has been recently, I say recently, what was it, back in 2014? Anyways, a legal battle that basically went all the way up to the Supreme Court and was basically looking at the tension between, um what was saying the government was requiring people
Mhm.
to have certain, access to certain medical things like contraceptives and things like that, and so with Hobby Lobby, they basically had some tension with that, and I'm not gonna get
Mhm.
into all the details, of course, with everything that was involved with that, you can go look that up, but essentially, long story short, you know, they won in some regard, you know what I mean? So, like, Hobby Lobby won that case, like, saying, "Hey, this is our deeply held belief,
Mhm.
this is how we're gonna do things." And th it that's how it played out. They won it. So I definitely encourage you to go look into that case, obviously, like, with big court legal things, like, we don't have time to talk about all this stuff on the show, and to be transparent, we're not attorneys and lawyers, so we don't wanna, like, even get into the language of that stuff because, like, that's for people that have other education that we don't have. But I think
Mhm.
it's just interesting to see the different controversies that many times that will play out with families and businesses that have
Mhm.
very strong faith beliefs. And it's just interesting to see, I think that specifically, how it played out in their favor because of how strong they had that belief. But kind of going back to, another way that the Green family has just stewarded the legacy and how it's really just shown publicly on what their mission,
Mhm.
what everything's built for, they give away a ton of money. Okay.
Mhm.
Again, not going into, like, all the legal structures and things like that, but if you read their book, David Green, he kind of walks through, like, what that actually looks like with who actually owns the company, and, like, they basically gave all their shares of the company to a trust, and a lot of business people do that anyway, like, they'll put their business in a trust, but the idea behind that with a lot of business owners is, "Hey, this is an efficient way to get the business from generation
Mhm.
1 to generation 2, multi-generationally," and there's different things, of course, you can put in there to make sure things, keep on in perpetuity. But for this specifically, the way that they would describe this, it wasn't for really their family. It was more to make sure the mission was it continued on in perpetuity. That there's
Mhm.
a little bit of a difference there. It's very similar in, like, probably the mechanics of it, but just the wording is a little bit different. And so I definitely, again, encourage people to go look up the actual, maybe differences between that, like
Mhm.
structures and, like, how the wording is. But when we're looking into it, it's really how the family worded it to make sure that the family's or not families, excuse me, the business's mission, their
Mhm.
values, their faith, everything was carried on. That way, the next generation, they couldn't blow it up. It is literally set in stone in writing within these documents that says, "Hey, this is what we believe. This is how we want things to operate. We want to give so much to X, Y, and Z. Like, this is how things are going to run."
Mhm.
And I think it's just a very clear illustration or an example of how they are just stewarding this, and they don't own the business. They actually don't own the business. God owns the business, and they're just
Mhm.
stewarding it well across generations. And again, it's blown up. And so I think there's a lot of things you can really look at with these types of families to see, hey, they have done things this way. It goes completely against the culture, but huge big but there. But it it worked out. It makes sense, and it has completely changed the trajectory of a lot of people's lives and the people that work there. And they've really, in a lot of ways, they've helped shape the culture around, crafting and just hobby things. And I think it's a very interesting family to really study from specifically. So, and Corey, sorry, I didn't even mention another big way that they have helped steward this as well. And again, like if you look this up, you could probably find maybe some controversies with this too. But they opened up the Museum of the Bible in Washington D.C., like in the capital of our
Mm.
nation, and it is all meant to just show the history and the scripture and how the impact has,
Gotcha.
gone throughout the year, like from inception to like everything to now. And so like investing literally probably hundreds of millions of dollars into that, it's just going to show that like, hey, their faith is so important that they want in the
Mhm.
nation's capital to put something there that is a staple that is going to actually show the gospel and show the truth behind their faith and what they believe.
God, I want to go back to something you said just on the stewardship aspect of it and, Green not owning the company. He said that so many times he meant it kind of literally, but also more so philosophically on that of I don't own the company. I just steward it. That's my role. I'm a steward of it. That has been his language for a long time. I think ever since he started back in his garage making $18,000 a year and getting a $600 loan to build picture frames. It's a hobby. Um, but this has been his posture. Most people operate their businesses like this. It's very close fisted. And we all know that we are tempted to be like this. We all know people that are like this. It's just, I'm in charge. I'm the one in control. You do what I say. You do what I do you do what I tell you to do, when I tell you to do it, how I tell you to do it. And what does that produce? Anxiety and a constant looking at the budget and the spreadsheets and wondering if everything's going to be okay. And if you really live like this, you're going to get gray hairs really fast, and you're going to throw yourself into a heart attack. And so many business owners do it. So many founders do it. I was just talking with a client the other day, a prospective client, and she literally like looks at her spreadsheets every single night and her trades and her portfolio, and she is like she told me I lose sleep over this
Hmm.
every single night of what if the market's going to go down, or what if I lose something, or what if something blows up, or will I be able to recover if something happens, and whatever. And she's living like this. But I wanted to pause and just take a moment and say, okay, let's do this for a second. Let's open the hands. Let's release it. This is the posture we need to live. This is how we need to live as business owners and people and founders with whatever God has given to us and entrusted to us as stewards. It's not ours. We're just stewarding it. Good or bad, come what may, it's not about me. I'm going to steward whatever God blesses. I'm going to steward whatever comes my way. We're able to take a deep breath and pause and say, hey, it's okay. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. I can't guarantee you anything, but I can give you my best. And we know who's ultimately in charge. And just the pressure that was taken off in that moment is notable to talk about in how we want to go about stewarding legacies with the people we talk to and the people that own businesses. And that's exactly what David Green has done. Instead of operating like this, he's just done this. And especially as it's blown up and now is worth billions of dollars, the business still continues to reflect that they're not after just controlling something they've pioneered and earned. They're after stewarding something that has been entrusted to them. And they're going to go as far as even incorporating it into legal structures and everything to continue carrying on that mission to the future generations so that they continue to be generous and they continue to honor the Lord with what he has entrusted to them. That is fundamentally a different way to operate. And that is operating out of trusting that it's not about us at the end of the day. And that is such a hard posture to live in, but you have to train yourself to do it. And when we do it, I'm telling you, it is so much more freeing that it's not up to me to provide for my family. It's not up to me to provide for the business. I'm here, I'm going to work hard, and I'm going to steward whatever is given to us. That changes the game.
That's a really good example about, that lady you were talking to the other day and just in the weeds of spreadsheets and, losing sleep over this stuff. And that's real. Obviously, I mean, people that are listening to this, like we've heard that so many times. And I think there's a healthy balance, just really quick to kind of share my thought on that, my perspective. I think there's a healthy balance, right? You've obviously got to know the numbers. You've got to make sure that things are looking correct and making decisions because inherently we have the responsibility to do that as business owners. That is super important. But at the same time, I think what the Green family really does well as a primary filter is to really say like, hey, does this honor the one we believe who actually owns this?
Hmm.
And kind of going back with what you were saying, like with it kind of takes some pressure off and the peace with that. That's that's a hard thing to explain to somebody that's never felt that. And I know that might be a weird thing to say, but like for believers, there is like this inherent like peace of knowing like when you just get like are you're open handed and you just say, hey, this is yours. It's not mine. I'm gonna show up and work hard. I'm gonna do what's right. I'm gonna provide for my family. I'm just gonna show up. I think that's the biggest thing.
Hmm.
Like I've got to show up and just I'm gonna take on today for what it brings. And I know at the end of the day it's gonna work out. And even if when it doesn't feel like it's gonna work out, it's still gonna know we still know it's gonna work out. And I think that's one of the best filters, like I said, with the Green family is just like, does this actually honor the one who we believe that
Hmm.
who actually owns this? And kind of talking about the peace aspect, I was listening to, a lot of people, there's lots of different podcasts, of course, and we'll listen to different ones as well. But the Diary of a CEO, Stephen Bartlett's podcast, he
Hmm.
had on there, I don't remember how long ago this was, but I listened to a little bit of it. And John Lennox, I looked it up really quick just to get his, I guess, official title, but he's the emeritus professor of mathematics at Oxford University. So
Sounds
somebody
smart.
that's probably a little bit smarter than probably anybody. So I was listening to that podcast and it kind of takes a weird turn about him essentially John saying like, I don't know, he's like there was almost like the way that he would answer questions. It was so confusing to Stephen because I think Stephen even said like the way that you're answering this is not how normally people would answer these questions. And then he would and John would be like, well, he would talk about his faith and he would talk about like the peace that comes with that and everything. It's something that you can see with people and how they live their lives out with believers. And for non-believers, it's something that's hard to understand, but you can see
Hmm.
it. You can see a difference in people that are living out their faith. And kind of going back, like I said, Cord, to that lady. Like I think inherently for us specifically as business owners, and being in the weeds with working with people, we want to make sure that we always um, can show people that we have peace with what we're doing. And
Hmm.
we are just simply here to show up and steward what we've been given because it can be taken away like this.
Yeah.
If it does, then that's the reality of it, the reality of it. But inherently we want to make sure that stewarding legacies is very much a normal part of the conversation and we want it to look different. We want this to be countercultural to everything that everybody else is doing
Yeah.
because that's who we are. We're faith-based, we're believers. We want to make sure that we have a mission and our values and our faith are showing in everything we do. And stewarding legacies is what we're all about. And partly
Yeah.
why we're doing this series on this as well, because it's something that's interesting. In a lot of ways, we're really researching and learning about these families as we're going through this podcast series. And it's just
Hmm.
encouraging us more and more that this is the right direction of how we need to actually operate with people. So going back to the Greens and everything, um, definitely study them. Go look them up, read their book. uh, do all the research. Just find people that I think this is gonna sound weird too. Find people that have beliefs that are wildly different than you and go
Mhm.
learn about them because it might show you an interesting perspective on something you may not have known. I think that's always a wise thing to do is just kind of put yourself in other people's shoes and just try to see it from their perspective. And I think it might, open up your eyes a little bit to just maybe different ways of thinking about things. So
Well, we can take one thing from the Green family. You don't have to operate the exact same way they do. Obviously, that's their personal conviction. You need to deal with that yourself. We have to answer that for ourselves. But here is a question that we can take away that Kyler and I want you to sit with and take with you that maybe you can journal about or go into a leadership coaching session with this question. Who does this actually belong to? Because it's not always about how much money is there. Yes, that's important, and we need to do that really well. But it's about how we go about it and how we steward the dollars that are there and how we steward the business and how we treat our employees and how we go about the spreadsheets and how we go about transferring the wealth. It's all about how and why, not just how much. And ultimately, who does this all belong to? That's a question we all have to wrestle with and answer for ourselves. And what are we building it for? That's something we have to wrestle with ourselves, and it's something I want you to take with you, deal with, and if we can be of any help or service to you, Kyle and I always offer a first conversation up for free, just on how we can help you steward your legacy. And with whatever comes in that ballpark, shoot us a text at 479-396-3528. 479-396-3528. And that conversation brings us so much joy. Even if we are just a fly on the wall second opinion, we hope to bring you some value and be of encouragement to you. And if there's ever a way we could possibly help that makes sense, great. We love to walk alongside you and make you leverage every opportunity that comes your way, just like we're trying to do here on the Leverage Life Show. So tune in next week as we go into our third episode. This is the second episode of our 5-episode series on the families who have done it insanely well, stewarded wealth, built it according to their convictions, and have passed it on in a multi-generational way. So we'll see you next week on the Leverage Life Show.